Victor Harmon had one rule in life. Never trust anyone who smiles at you when you have money. He had tested 47 people. 47 times he had been right. Greed, every single time. But he had never tested a 6-year-old girl, and that mistake cost him everything he believed. Victor Harmon was not born cold. He was made that way. At 34, he had built a textile empire from a single second-hand sewing machine. By 60, he was worth more than most small countries. But the same year he made his first billion, his wife Eleanor was diagnosed with cancer. And in the months that followed, Victor watched something horrifying happen. His 3 adult children, people he had raised, fed, loved, began circling like vultures. "Papa, maybe you should write the will now, just in case. Just in case."
Yes, Counselor.
Eleanor died on a Tuesday in November. By Thursday, his son Daniel had already called the family lawyer. Victor never forgot that. He fired every member of his household staff and replaced them with new ones, strangers, so he could watch them with fresh eyes. Testing. Always testing. He had a system. Simple, effective, ruthless. He would leave an envelope of cash, $3,000, in plain sight. And wait. "Show me who you really are," he would whisper to himself, when no one is watching. Every person he had tested had failed. Every single one. Grace Okafor had been Victor's housekeeper for exactly 3 weeks. She was quiet, efficient, and always 5 minutes early. Victor noticed these things. On a cold Wednesday morning in February, Grace knocked on his study door. "Mr. Harmon, sir, I'm so sorry to disturb you. My daughter's school has a pipe burst. They sent all the children home. I have no one to call. If I could just..." Victor stared at her for a long moment. "How old?" "6, sir." A long silence. "Fine. She sits in the kitchen. She doesn't touch anything. She doesn't make noise. She doesn't enter the East Wing. Understood?" "Yes, sir. Thank you, sir." "God bless." "Don't thank me, Mrs. Okafor. I didn't do it to be kind." Her name was Maya. She was small for her age, with 2 uneven pigtails and a backpack that was slightly too big for her tiny shoulders. She had her mother's eyes, deep, warm, searching. Grace led her to the kitchen table, sat her down, placed a juice box and a coloring book in front of her, and whispered with great seriousness, "Maya, this is a very important man's house. You are going to sit here, color quietly, and not move from this chair. Do you understand?" Maya looked up with wide eyes. "Is he mean, Mama?" Grace hesitated. "He is serious. Very, very serious. So be invisible, okay? Can you be invisible?" Maya nodded slowly. "Like a ninja?" "Exactly like a ninja." That morning, Victor moved to the dining room. He placed the white envelope on the far corner of the table. $3,000, fanned just slightly so the bills were visible. Then he sat in his armchair by the fireplace, opened a book, and lowered his reading glasses, and waited. 20 minutes passed. 30. Grace moved efficiently through the hallway, polishing, dusting, humming softly under her breath. Victor watched her from the corner of his eye. She passed the dining room door twice. Twice she glanced at the envelope. Twice she kept walking. Victor almost smiled. Almost. She's just waiting for the right moment, he thought. Then, at exactly 11:14 in the morning, he heard small footsteps. Maya appeared in the doorway of the dining room. Victor kept his eyes on his book. He was not reading a single word. The little girl looked around the room slowly. Her eyes landed on the envelope. Victor's jaw tightened. Maya walked forward. And then, she walked right past the envelope. She walked to the window. She looked outside at the bare winter garden for a moment, then turned around. And that's when she saw Victor, still as a statue in his armchair. She tilted her head. Victor did not move. He slowed his breathing. He was very good at this. Maya was quiet for a very long time. Then she walked to the side table, picked up a folded blanket that was draped over a chair, and walked carefully to Victor's armchair. And she placed it gently over his legs. "You'll get cold," she whispered. "Old people get cold fast. My grandpa told me that before he went to heaven." Victor did not move. Maya nodded to herself, satisfied. Then she noticed the envelope, this time up close. She picked it up. Victor's hands gripped the arms of the chair. Maya walked to the table and placed the envelope in the center, away from the edge. "It was going to fall," she said to no one. Then she pulled a folded piece of paper from her backpack pocket. She smoothed it on the table, picked up a crayon, and began to draw. When she was done, she tiptoed to Victor's side and tucked the drawing under the corner of his book. Victor waited until Maya returned to the kitchen. Then he stood up. He looked at the side table. His reading glasses, the expensive Italian ones, were sitting near the edge. He picked them up, turned them over in his hands. An idea formed. Old habits die hard. He carried the glasses to the kitchen and stood in the doorway. Mrs. Okafor. Grace turned immediately. Sir? These glasses were on the side table in the sitting room. The left lens is cracked. He held them up. Grace's face went pale. Sir, I dusted that table this morning. I was so careful. These are custom prescription lenses, hand-ground in Florence. The replacement cost is $400. Grace's hand gripped the counter. $400, she repeated quietly. I'll deduct it from your wages. Monthly installments. Sir, please. Grace's voice shook. My rent. Maya's school shoes. Those are not my concerns, Mrs. Bowie. Okafor. Victor kept his face stone cold. He was very good at this. Sir. Grace straightened her back. Please, take everything from this month's pay. Take next month too. But please don't let this affect Maya. She didn't do anything. Victor said nothing. Then a small voice came from the table. Wait! Maya had been very still this whole time. Victor had almost forgotten she was there. She climbed down slowly from her chair. She reached into the small front pocket of her backpack, and she placed something on the kitchen table. It was a tiny toy bird, carved from pale wood. One wing was chipped. The paint had faded to almost nothing, but it had been polished over and over until it gleamed in certain lights. This is Birdie, Maya said carefully. My daddy carved it for me before he went to heaven. He said as long as I have Birdie, he's watching over me. She pushed it across the table toward Victor. You can have Birdie, to pay for the glasses. Birdie is worth more than $400 to me, so it should be enough. She said it simply, like it was obvious, like there was no other option. Victor stared at the little wooden bird. He could not speak. Maya, no! Grace moved toward her daughter. Mama, it's okay. Maya looked up at her mother with total calm. Daddy would want me to help you. I know he would. Victor's jaw tightened, then broke. His hand, the same hand that had placed every test, that had held the envelope for 47 people, reached out and pushed the wooden bird gently back toward Maya. Keep it, he said. His voice was barely above a whisper. Grace stared at him. Victor pulled out a chair and sat down heavily, like a man who had been standing for a very long time and had finally admitted he was tired. The glasses aren't broken, he said quietly. Grace blinked. What? The lens was already cracked. From 3 months ago. I dropped them myself. Silence. And the envelope this morning, the cash on the dining table, I put it there on purpose. I do it with everyone. I wait. I watch. I have done it 47 times. Grace's hand flew to her mouth. I wanted to catch you stealing, Victor said. He couldn't look at her. I wanted to be right. About people. About what everyone really is underneath. But your daughter. His voice broke on the word. She didn't take the money. She moved it to the center of the table so it wouldn't fall. She covered me with a blanket. She drew me a picture so I wouldn't eat alone. And then, he looked at the little wooden bird. She offered me the only piece of her father she has left, to help her mother. He finally looked at Grace. His eyes were wet. I am a very rich man, Mrs. Okafor. I have more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes. His voice dropped to almost nothing. But I could not do what your daughter just did. Not for anyone. He shook his head slowly. You have nothing. And yet, you raised a queen. Things changed after that Wednesday. Victor insisted Maya come every school holiday. He hired a tutor, then paid for private school, then university. He told Grace it was a business arrangement. I invest in potential. Grace knew better. She let him believe the lie. Maya grew up between two worlds, her mother's small apartment and Victor's quiet mansion. She learned to love books in his library. She learned what loneliness looked like and how to sit with someone in it. Victor taught her chess. Maya taught him to laugh again. It was, Grace would later say, the most unusual family she had ever seen, and the most real. Victor died on a Sunday morning in April. He was 81. He died in his armchair with a blanket over his legs and a crayon drawing, framed, hanging on the wall in front of him. 3 days later, Victor's 3 children sat in a lawyer's office. They wore expensive suits and impatient expressions. Daniel, the eldest, kept checking his watch. The lawyer, Mr. Patel, opened a thick folder. The estate of Victor Harmon, valued at approximately $340 million, is to be distributed as follows. Daniel straightened up. To Daniel Harmon, Richard Harmon, and Sophia Harmon Pierce, he leaves $1 each. Along with this note, he unfolded a letter and began to read. You taught me that love is a transaction. A maid's daughter taught me it is a gift. I am leaving my wealth where kindness lives. The room went very quiet. The remainder of the estate, $340 million, is left in its entirety to Maya Grace Okafor, with the request that she use it to ensure no child goes without education, and no elderly person eats alone. Daniel slammed the table. This is insane. She was nobody. A cleaner's child. Mr. Singh. Patel held up one hand. There is one more item. He placed a small object on the table. A crayon drawing, carefully laminated. 2 people at a table, one big, one small. So you don't eat alone anymore. Mr. Harmon asked that this be returned to Miss Okafor, the lawyer said quietly. He said she'd know what it means. Maya Okafor today runs the Harmon Eleanor Foundation. 12 schools, 4 elderly care homes, hundreds of scholarships. People ask her sometimes, what was Victor Harmon really like? She always smiles. He was a man who had been hurt so many times he forgot that kindness existed, she says. He just needed someone to remind him. I happened to have crayons that day. The drawing hangs in her office now, framed in gold. And underneath it, a small plaque that reads, the most powerful thing in the world is not money. It is what a child does when no one is watching. Subscribe to Echoes of Hope, because every story here is a heartbeat of humanity.